Welcome back to another deep dive. We are doing something a little unusual today.
hmm
Usually when we dig into a topic, we're looking at published bestsellers, maybe viral articles, or, some dense academic research that's making waves.
We look at the ideas that won,
Exactly. The history written by the victors, the constitutions that were actually ratified, the laws that got passed, the leaders who really ended up ruling.
which is how we usually consume history, right?
Right.
We look at what happened.
Right. But today, we are looking at a ghost. We are looking at a timeline that never happened. We have in front of us a digital scan, a PDF of a handwritten manuscript.
That's not a polished book from some big publishing house.
No, not at all. It's a scan of a green folder filled with lined paper, and it's written in this very neat, very purposeful blue and black ink. It's dated October 20, 1970, Baghdad.
And for context, before we even open that folder, that date and that location, Baghdad, 1970, that is everything. It is the crucible for everything we're about to discuss.
The title is written right there in the center of the cover, Al-Dostur al-Hakim, which translates to The Wise Constitution.
Such a hopeful title.
It is, isn't it? And the author is a man named Abdul Jabbar Al-Waily. Now, I have to be honest with you, and with you listening, I hadn't heard of him before we started researching this deep dive.
Most people haven't, and that's the point. He isn't a famous head of state. He wasn't a general. He is a philosopher, an intellectual, a thinker, writing in the privacy of his own study,
He's a man watching his world catch fire.
and trying to figure out how to put it out using nothing but a pen.
That's what hooked me immediately. This isn't just a list of laws, it's a mission. The intro, or the muqaddimah, as he calls it hit me hard. He talks about the era following July 14th, 1958.
Which is the overthrow of the monarchy in Iraq.
Right. And usually when you read political text from that era, that revolution is treated as this glorious new dawn.
Yes, the standard narrative is, we threw off the chains of the past, and now we are marching toward progress. But Al-Waily, he doesn't sound like a man celebrating. He sounds exhausted.
He describes a period of successive revolutions. And he talks about them with this, this palpable sense of dread. He mentions factories stopping, agriculture freezing, grain rotting in the fields. It's a very visceral description of state failure.
And you have to understand, in the political science of the Middle East during that era, revolution often just meant military coup.
Right.
One group of officers overthrows another. Tanks roll into the palace, the national anthem changes, and the people just hold their breath. Al-Waily is describing the economic devastation that comes with that kind of instability.
Of course. When you don't know who will be in charge tomorrow, you don't plant crops today.
You don't build a factory. You don't invest. You wait.
There's this one line in the intro where he says the country's reputation was being tarnished abroad, but worse, at home, people didn't know how their day will end.
Wow.
That specific phrase, not knowing how your day will end, that just creates such an intense atmosphere of fear.
It's the definition of terror, really. Not knowing if you're going to sleep in your own bed or in a cell.
Yeah.
He explicitly mentions torture, imprisonment, the confiscation of money. He's describing a society that is eating itself alive.
So this is the context. Fear, chaos, economic ruin. And most people, when faced with that kind of environment, they keep their heads down. They try to survive. They don't make waves.
Mm-hmm.
But Abdul Jabbar Al-Waily does something almost quixotic.
Yeah.
He decides to sit down and design a perfect society from scratch.
It's a psychological defense mechanism, but a really productive one. He decides to fight chaos with order. He decides to write a constitution that would fix everything, even though he probably knew deep down it might never actually be implemented. It's an act of intellectual defiance.
And the way he writes it, this is what I like. It's not dry legalese. It's not Article 1, Section 2. He uses a narrative device.
He structures it like a story.
Yes. Almost like 1001 Nights.
The Knight structure.
Yeah.
He frames the entire Constitution as a series of debates taking place on summer evenings by the Tigris River.
Which is such a beautiful, evocative image. You can almost feel the heat radiating off the pavement, the sound of the river water lapping against the bank, maybe the clinking of tea glasses.
It grounds this high-minded philosophy in a very real, very Iraqi setting. It's not happening in some sterile conference room.
And he introduces a cast of characters to have these debates. This is brilliant because it allows him to show his work. He doesn't just give us the final answer, he shows us the argument.
He externalizes his own thought process.
Let's meet the cast. So we have Abdul Jabbar, who is the narrator and sort of the mediator. He's the author inserting himself into the text. Then we have Ahmed.
Ahmed is the idealist. He's the philosopher. When you read the text, it's pretty clear that Ahmed is the author's superego. He represents the voice of reason, the high-minded principles of what government should be. He's the one dreaming of the utopia.
And then there is my personal favorite, Shaker. Shaker is the MVP of this manuscript, in my opinion.
Shaker is absolutely essential. Shaker is the skeptic. He's the realist. He is the guy sitting there, sipping his tea and saying, why are we even doing this? Nobody cares about laws. The government has guns. They don't care about your little notebook.
It feels like a debate for the soul of the nation. You have hope versus cynicism played out on lined paper.
And frankly, Shaker makes some really good points. He's not a straw man.
No, not at all. And that's what gives the text its integrity. Al-Waily anticipates the criticism his ideas will face, that they're naive, that they're toothless, and he puts that criticism right into Shaker's mouth.
He lets the skepticism breathe before he tries to answer it.
So let's unpack the first major section, the philosophy of government. We start with the first night. The title of this section is To Write or Not to Write, which is very Shakespearean.
It is. And it addresses the elephant in the room immediately. Shaker challenges Ahmed right out of the gate. He asks, essentially, is this a complete waste of time? If the current government ignores the laws that already exist, why write a new constitution?
Why bother building a beautiful house if you know the arsonists are just going to burn it down?
That's the question. And Ahmed's defense is, honestly, it's inspiring. He admits that the current regime might ignore it. He doesn't deny the reality of the situation, but he says that the truth must be recorded for history.
He argues that silence in the face of chaos is complicity.
Exactly. And he draws a distinction that acts as the thesis for the whole book. He distinguishes between the chaotic government and the wise government.
Okay, what's the difference?
The chaotic government serves itself, its cronies, its whims. It is reactive and violent. But the wise government, it serves the people. It's proactive and rational.
There's a metaphor he used that really stuck with me. He compares a bad government to a shepherd who drinks from a poisoned well.
Yes. If the shepherd drinks from a poisoned well, the whole flock suffers. It's a simple agrarian image, but it lands. If the leadership is corrupt or poisoned by greed and violence, the rot spreads to every single citizen.
You can't have a healthy society under a sick leader. The poison trickles down. So on a second night, they get into the nitty-gritty. Where does this wise constitution actually come from? Is he just making it all up, pulling it out of thin air?
No, he's very thorough. Ahmed lists his sources. He's looking at the global constitutions of democratic nations. He cites the principles of the United Nations, human rights charters.
Okay, so standard stuff.
Standard stuff, but, and this is key, he also insists on local laws tailored to the specific needs of the country.
He's not just copy-pasting Western democracy.
No, absolutely not. He realizes you can't just take the U.S. Constitution or the French Constitution and just drop it into Baghdad and expect it to work. You need to synthesize those universal principles with the Iraqi reality. He wants a custom suit, not something off the rack.
Speaking of Iraqi reality, we have to talk about the just coup theory.
Oh, this part.
This blew my mind. I had to read this section twice to make sure I actually understood what he was proposing.
This is one of the most unique and specific clauses in the entire manuscript. You have to remember, Al-Waily has lived through coup after coup after coup. 1958, 1963, 1968. He hates them. He sees them as the very source of the chaos he's trying to solve. But he's also a realist. He knows the military is the only institution with the raw power to actually change anything.
Right, so the text forbids military coup. That seems standard for any democratic constitution. But then there's this massive exception, a loophole.
The exception is fascinating. He writes that a military coup is forbidden unless it is specifically designed to restore the Constitution and democracy.
It's like a break glass in case of emergency clause for the military.
It is, but he puts a timer on it. He knows that historically generals who take power promise to leave, but they never do. So he sets up this really strict binary. He says if a group of officers stages a coup for personal gain, they are criminals, they should be tried, and their assets seized.
Seizing the assets is a nice touch. It hits them in the wallet.
It creates a powerful disincentive for greed. But then he says, if they stage a coup to overthrow a tyrant and restore the wise constitution, they are heroes. Provided they hand over power immediately to a civilian government.
Immediately being the operative word there.
Yes. They have to do the job and go home. They can be the saviors of the nation, but they cannot be its rulers.
That is such a tightrope walk. He's trying to harness the only real power in the country, the army. and use it to protect democracy rather than destroy it. He's trying to rewrite the military code of honor.
It just shows you how desperate the situation was. He knew that without the army, no constitution could survive. But he also knew the army was the biggest threat to the Constitution. He's trying to legislate a Cincinnatus figure.
The Roman general who saved the Republic and then went back to his farm.
Precisely. He's dreaming of an army of Cincinnatuses.
Moving into Section 2, the architecture of this ideal state, we get to the fourth knight and the legislative body. He calls it the Shura Council.
Shura implies consultation. It's a traditional Islamic term, deeply rooted in the culture. But Al-Waily, he modernizes it. And here's where we really see the philosopher's bias coming out.
Yes, I noticed that. The barriers to entry are incredibly high. To be a representative, you can't just be popular. You can't just be a good community organizer.
No, you must hold a university degree or have equivalent scientific production. Al-Waily is obsessed with education. You see this running through the entire text.
Why, though?
He believes that the chaos of his time was caused by ignorant men with guns. Men who didn't understand economics, didn't understand history, didn't understand law. They just understood force.
So his solution is put the intellectuals in charge.
It's a technocracy. He wants a parliament of experts, a republic of philosophers, just like Plato dreamed of.
But isn't that incredibly elitist, especially in 1970 Iraq where literacy rates weren't,
It is. It's hugely elitist. And Shaker, our skeptic, he calls him out on it. Shaker asks, won't this just create a new class divide? Will the man with the PhD really understand the man with the shovel?
It effectively disenfranchises the vast majority of the population from ever running for office.
It does. But Ahmed's argument, Al-Waily's argument, is that governance is a science. You wouldn't let someone without a medical degree perform surgery just because they're popular. So why let someone without an education run the economy?
So he trusts knowledge more than he trusts the people.
I think that's a fair assessment. And there's this debate about immunity for these council members. Shaker asks, why give them immunity at all? Won't they just abuse it?
A very good question.
It is. And Ahmed's reply is crucial for understanding the era. He says immunity isn't to put them above the law. It's to protect them from political persecution. In a country where politicians were regularly jailed, exiled, or executed by their rivals, immunity was a survival mechanism for democracy.
It was a shield.
A shield to keep the secret police out of the Parliament building.
Then we get to the big guy, the head of state. The fifth knight describes the wise president.
And the qualifications here are, again, rigorous. Age over 40. Iraqi by birth and parentage. That's to ensure loyalty lies only with the nation, not with foreign powers. University degree, again, the education requirement. But the most interesting requirement is temperamental.
He has to be Halim.
Halim. This is a word with deep resonance. It translates to forbearing, mild-tempered, wise. It's often used as one of the names of God in Islam, Al-Halim. But in a human context, it means someone who doesn't fly off the handle. Someone with incredible emotional control.
Al-Waily writes that the ability to control one's emotions is proof of the ability to control others.
Which is a direct critique of the fiery demagogic leaders typical of the mid-20th century Middle East. The types shouting from balconies, banging their fists on tables, whipping up mobs into a frenzy. Al-Waily looks at that and he sees weakness. He sees instability. He doesn't want a shouter. He doesn't want a table banger. He wants a calm, rational father figure.
It's almost like he wants a therapist in chief, someone to lower the blood pressure of the entire nation.
Exactly. He believes that if the head is calm, the body will be calm.
And he puts term limits on him. 5 years, renewable only once.
In a region where president for life was rapidly becoming the norm, that is a radical proposition. And he includes impeachment. The president is not absolute. He can be removed by a 2/3 vote of the councils if he violates the Constitution.
He's making the leader an employee of the people, not their owner.
That's it, exactly.
And to double-check all of this, he introduces a second chamber on the sixth night, the Council of Notables, or Alliance.
This is the safety valve. It's composed of older, experienced figures. Ahmed describes them as the scale of justice. Their job is to balance out the enthusiasm and maybe the rashness of the elected Shura Council. It's a classic bicameral system designed to slow things down and ensure stability.
He really, really doesn't want laws passed in the heat of passion.
He's allergic to it.
Let's move to Section 3. The third night covers political parties. Now, Shaker basically asks the question a lot of people ask, why bother? Parties just fight and cause trouble. Why not just ban them and have unity?
A very common sentiment. Why can't we all just get along? But Ahmed counters that peaceful political fighting is better than military fighting. He argues that conflict is inevitable in human society. It's going to happen.
So if you ban parties,
Politics doesn't disappear. It just goes underground. And when politics goes underground, it becomes violent. It becomes conspiratorial. It becomes about assassinations, not elections.
so he wants to bring the fight out into the open.
Yes. Let them fight with words in the Shura Council so they don't have to fight with tanks in the streets.
But he put strict rules on them, and again, the founders must be educated.
Yes, and the red lines are very important. Parties cannot be founded on sectarian, ethnic, or feudal lines. This is Al-Waily directly trying to solve the fragmentation of Iraqi society.
He doesn't want a Sunni party, a Shia party, or a Kurdish party.
Precisely. He wants parties to be ideological, liberal, conservative, socialist, whatever. He wants people to organize around ideas, not bloodlines. He believes, probably correctly, that identity politics will tear the country apart,
And a strict ban on foreign funding.
which was a huge issue at the time. Every faction was being funded by someone, the Americans, the Soviets, the British, the regional neighbors. He wanted to cut those strings. He wanted Iraqi politics to be owned and operated by Iraqis.
Now, we have to talk about women's rights. This is discussed in Nights 3 and 10. And given the time and place, 1970 Baghdad, I was expecting something very, very conservative. I was expecting him to say, women are the heart of the home and leave it at that. But I was surprised.
It is surprisingly progressive, and the way he argues for it is fascinating. Shaker, of course, plays the traditionalist here. He asks, why should a woman be a judge or a leader? Isn't that against our tradition?
And Ahmed shuts him down, but not with a moral argument about fairness or equality. He uses a logical, almost utilitarian argument.
He brings up history. He doesn't quote scripture, he quotes history. He cites Queen Victoria and Catherine the Great. He argues that women have ruled empires better than many men have. His core argument is completely meritocratic.
He states that ability and education determine capability, not gender.
And there's a specific line where he just dismisses the argument that women are too emotional to rule.
Right.
He points out that many men are incredibly emotional and unfit to rule. He basically says, have you seen the guys running the country now? They are emotional wrecks. It's a very modern, very witty argument.
It's the efficiency argument again.
Yes. He argues that if you exclude half your population women, you are wasting half the nation's talent. If you're building a machine and he sees the state as a machine, and you leave half the parts on the floor, the machine won't work properly.
So if a woman has a degree and a man doesn't,
The woman is the better part for the machine. Logic dictates she should be the one in charge.
Okay, Section 4. We're getting into the machinery of the state. The Ninth Night. The Ministry of Interior. This is the police and prisons. This felt personal.
It does. Remember the fear he mentioned in the intro. This is his attempt to dismantle the architecture of the police state. He wants to turn the police from a force of terror into a force of public service.
He starts with their pay. He argues police must be paid well.
It's practical anti-corruption. It's so simple. If a policeman can't feed his family on his salary, he will take a bribe. It's inevitable. But if he's paid well, you can hold him to a higher standard. He also suggests 8-hour shifts, so they remain alert.
He's treating them like professionals, not just thugs with a uniform.
Exactly. But the prison reform stuff, wow. He writes that prisons must have ventilation and cooling.
Cooling in the blistering Iraqi summer. That is a detail that just speaks volumes about his humanity. He's thinking about the physical suffering of the incarcerated.
And he explicitly forbids torture. He says prisons should be houses of reform, not vengeance.
It elevates the prisoner to the status of a human being with biological needs. In a chaotic government, the prisoner is just garbage. You throw them in a hole and you forget about them. In a wise government, the prisoner is a citizen under temporary restraint. The state still owes them a duty of care.
A profound difference.
But then there's a flip side. The text takes a conservative turn regarding social morality.
Yes, and we have to be honest about the contradictions in the text. While he wants political freedom, he calls for the banning of gambling. He wants strict monitoring of moral conduct in public spaces.
But with a caveat, he specifies that private homes should not be raided without a warrant.
That's the key distinction. The public square is for order and morality. The private home is a sanctuary. It's a classic liberal conservative divide. He doesn't want the state kicking down doors. He's seen enough of that. But he also doesn't want to see vice on the street corners.
He wants a clean society.
A virtuous public square.
Speaking of clean, let's talk about the 11th night and municipalities. He proposes these social councils.
This is one of my favorite parts because it blends the modern and the traditional so cleverly. He wants a council in every village or neighborhood composed of the imam, the teacher, and the village elders.
And what's the goal there?
Dispute resolution at the lowest possible level. If two neighbors are fighting over a fence or a small debt or some family matter, they go to the social council first. They solve it locally, face-to-face, without clogging up the entire court system.
It acknowledges the real power structures that exist in a village.
Exactly. In Iraqi society, the local community leader, the imam, often holds more sway than some distant judge in a black robe. By formalizing this, he's integrating the tribe and the mosque into the state structure in a healthy, productive way.
And he's obsessed with cleanliness, paving streets, planting gardens.
He connects aesthetics to dignity. If your street is paved and has a garden, you feel pride in your nation. If it's open sewage and mud, you feel neglected. You feel like the state doesn't care about you. Al-Waily believes that a beautiful city helps create beautiful citizens.
Moving on to Section 5, Foreign Policy, the 10th night. He sketches the ideal diplomat.
I love this. He describes the foreign minister as needing political wisdom, social tact, and a strong, lovable personality. I love that word, lovable. He realizes that diplomacy is a human game. It's about relationships.
And what about Iraq's place in the world? This is the height of the Cold War.
He advocates for strict neutrality, neither east nor west. He writes that Iraq should be a friend to all but a servant to none. He doesn't want Iraq to be a pawn in the superpower chess game between the U.S. and the Soviet Union.
But he is very big on Arab unity.
Huge. Pan-Arabism was the dominant ideology of the time. But Al-Waily proposes something more structured than just slogans and rallies. He wants a league of Arab states that functions like a real federal union. A unified army, economic integration.
Like the EU almost.
Kind of proto-EU, yes.
Uh-huh.
And the headquarters.
Beirut.
Beirut.
Why Beirut?
Because in 1970, Beirut was the Paris of the Middle East. It was cosmopolitan, beautiful, the banking hub, the publishing hub. Al-Waily describes it as the ideal location because of its beauty and its location. It's such a nostalgic nod to a Beirut that was about to be destroyed by its own civil war just a few years later.
It's a heartbreaking detail in hindsight.
It really is.
Now, we need to address his stance on Israel, and we need to look at this historically.
Right. We have to be very clear. We are looking at a historical document from 1970 from Baghdad. The text contains strong anti-Zionist rhetoric, which was standard and ubiquitous in Iraq at the time.
Okay.
He views the conflict as existential. He calls for a unified Arab military stance to support the rights of Palestinians and rejects what he terms imperialist interventions in the region.
So it's important for us to understand this as the prevailing worldview of his environment. We're reporting on the source, not endorsing it.
Exactly. For Al-Waily, this wasn't just foreign policy. It was a matter of regional identity and justice as he understood it. But then, almost paradoxically, he pivots from this intense regional conflict to this dream of a global union.
Yeah, talk about a pivot. He goes from a war footing to dreaming of a world without any borders.
Ahmed admits it's a utopia. He dreams of a United Nations with actual teeth, a world union where humanity acts as one family. But he acknowledges this requires a fundamental change in human nature.
It just shows the tension in his mind.
It does. He's caught between the bitter realities of the Middle East conflict and a very high-minded philosophical humanism.
Section 6 deals with the economy. He laments that Iraq, the land of two rivers, is importing grain.
That really, really bothers him. Mesopotamia is the literal cradle of agriculture.
Yeah.
The idea that they were importing food was, to him, a sign of deep fundamental mismanagement. He calls for mechanization. He wants industry. He says a nation without industry is backward.
It's the developmentalist mindset of the 1970s. Smokestacks meant progress.
They did. And tourism. He sees the potential.
Which is smart.
Very. Religious tourism to the shrines in Najaf and Karbala, archaeological tourism to Babylon and Ur. He wants hotels upgraded to international standards. He wants the world to come and see Iraq's glory.
Finally, the banks. This is a tricky one because of the religious prohibition on usury, or riba.
Right. Charging interest is forbidden in Islam. But Al-Waily is a pragmatist. Ahmed argues that you can't have a modern economy without banks. You need loans to build factories, to mechanize farms.
So what's his workaround?
Nationalization, or at least heavy state regulation. His argument is that if the bank belongs to the state and the state belongs to the people, then the interest you pay isn't profit for a greedy moneylender. It's a service fee that goes back into the public pot to build roads and schools.
It's a clever theological loophole to allow for modern finance.
A very clever one.
So we've reached the end of the manuscript, the outro.
The nights come to an end. Ahmed, Shaker, and Abdul Jabbar conclude their discussions. They pack up their papers by the river.
And we have to face the what if.
We do, because we know what happened next. This was October 1970. In the years that followed, the Ba'ath Party consolidated power. Saddam Hussein rose to prominence and eventually the presidency in 1979.
A wise government never happened.
No. Instead of the calm, Halim president, Iraq got a brutal dictatorship. Instead of a parliament of intellectuals, it got a rubber stamp assembly. Instead of peace, it got the Iran-Iraq war, the invasion of Kuwait, sanctions, invasion, and civil war.
Holding this PDF, reading this neat handwriting, it's just heartbreaking. It's a blueprint for a house that was never built, a map to a country that never existed.
But I think there's something profound in the attempt. Imagine sitting in Baghdad in 1970, sensing that darkness closing in, and choosing to light a candle. Choosing to believe that reason could triumph over force.
It makes me think about the character of Shaker again. Was he right? Was it all just a waste of time?
In the short term, yes. Shaker was right. The laws were just ink. Power respected only power. But in the long term, I don't know. The fact that we are sitting here reading this today, 50-plus years later, means Ahmed's voice didn't disappear completely.
It's a testament to the idea that even in the worst of times, people are dreaming of a better way.
And writing it down, that's the key. He wrote it down.
So here's our final thought for you to chew on. Is a perfect constitution possible? Or is Shaker right? Are laws just paper if the people in power don't have the will to follow them? Can a book save a nation?
That is the question.
We'll leave you there, by the banks of the Tigris, with Abdul Jabbar and his friends. Thanks for listening to The Deep Dive.
Until next time.
Okay, wait. I know we just wrapped up, but I can't let you go yet.
I had a feeling you weren't done.
I'm not. There is so much more in this green folder. We skimmed the surface, but I want to really dig into the mind of Abdul Jabbar Al-Waily. We need to analyze him as a philosopher, not just a would-be lawyer.
Well, I agree completely. The summary gives you the shape of the building, but we need to look at the bricks. We need to look at the mortar holding it all together.
Let's go back to the very beginning. The structure. The knights. Why would a serious philosopher writing a serious constitution for a nation in crisis use a storytelling format? Why not just write a manifesto?
It's a brilliant pedagogical strategy. Al-Waily understands something fundamental about human nature.
Right.
We learn through stories, not through lists. If he had written a dry legal text, only lawyers and academics would have read it.
Right.
But by wrapping it in a narrative, by creating these characters, he's inviting the reader, the common Iraqi, into a conversation.
It's accessible.
It is. It's Plato's Republic meets the Iraqi tea house. He's democratizing philosophy. And the characters, Ahmed and Shaker, they allow him to externalize his own internal conflict. I strongly suspect Al-Waily was both Ahmed and Shaker.
That makes so much sense. He was the idealist and the skeptic at the same time.
Well, aren't we all? When we look at politics, part of us hopes for the best. That's our inner Ahmed. And part of us expects the worst. That's our inner Shaker. By dramatizing that conflict, he validates the reader's own doubts.
So when Shaker says, this is useless, the reader nods and says, yeah, I was thinking that too.
Exactly. And then Ahmed has to win the reader over, not just Shaker. It's a masterful, persuasive technique. It's dialectics. He's not preaching at you. He's arguing with you.
Okay, let's drill down into that just coup theory again. Section 2, the second night. I feel like we need to really understand the psychology of this. It feels so tragically optimistic.
It's the paradox of power in the post-colonial world. In 1970s Iraq, the ballot box was effectively broken. The courts were often corrupt. The bureaucracy was slow and inefficient. The only institution that actually worked, the only institution with discipline and hierarchy and efficiency, was the military.
So he's trying to perform a kind of political judo, use the enemy's strength against them.
Correct. He's trying to solve that ancient riddle. Who guards the guardians? His answer is, the guardians must guard themselves, bound by a strict code of honor. That clause about handing over power immediately is the absolute linchpin of the whole idea.
But history is just littered with generals who say, I'll leave in 6 months and then stay for 30 years.
Oh, he knows that. Of course he knows that. That's why he tries to legislate against human nature itself. He says if they stay, they are criminals. If they leave, they are saviors. He's trying to create a path to glory that doesn't involve tyranny.
He's appealing to their ego.
It's a plea to their vanity in a way.
Yeah.
Be the hero, not the villain. It's naive, perhaps, but it's a noble attempt. And the punishment seizing their assets, that shows he understood the real motivation. He knew many coups were driven by pure greed, by the desire to capture the state's oil resources. By threatening their personal wealth, he's trying to alter the cost-benefit analysis of treason.
Let's talk about the Shore Council and the education fetish again. I call it a fetish because he really is obsessed with university degrees.
It is an obsession, but you have to view it through the lens of his time. The 1950s and 60s saw the rise of these populist leaders, often from the military, often from rural backgrounds, who didn't have much formal education. They had charisma, they had guns, but they didn't know how to run a central bank or negotiate a trade deal.
So Al-Waily looks at the economic ruin and thinks, if only we had PhDs running things.
It's a reaction to incompetence. He equates degree with competence. But there is a huge blind spot there, isn't there?
Huge. Some of the most educated people can be the most disconnected from the common person. Just because you understand macroeconomics doesn't mean you understand the price of bread in the souk.
Exactly. If you require a university degree to be in parliament, you are explicitly creating a class system, the knowers versus the doers. You are telling the farmer, the laborer, the soldier, the shopkeeper, you are good enough to follow the laws, but you are not good enough to make them.
It effectively creates an aristocracy of the diploma.
It does. And Shaker pushes back on this. The text acknowledges the danger. But Al-Waily makes a choice. He decides that the danger of ignorance is greater than the danger of elitism.
Let's zoom in on the Halim president again, the fifth knight. This concept of emotional control is just so countercultural for that time and place.
It's fascinating because it frames politics as a character test. In modern Western democracies, we tend to look at policy platforms. We ask, what is your tax plan? What is your health care plan? Al-Waily looks at the man's soul. He asks, are you calm? Can you handle pressure without lashing out?
It's a direct reaction to the trauma of the revolutionary style.
Yes. Al-Waily associates anger with destruction. He has seen angry men destroy his country. So the wise government must be the calm government. He wants a leader who absorbs the shocks rather than amplifying them.
It's deeply psychological. He believes the temperament of the leader filters down to the temperament of the street.
And he's probably right. If the president is screaming on the television every night, the people on the street scream too. If the president is calm and measured, the people might just listen for a second.
Okay, moving to the fourth knight and that immunity debate. We touched on it, but the nuance is interesting. Shaker asks, is this just a new class of nobility?
And that's the danger of immunity, right? It can create a caste of untouchables. We see this in many countries today, where parliamentarians use immunity to avoid everything from parking tickets to serious corruption charges.
But Ahmed defends it so fiercely.
Because his fear is different. He isn't afraid of a politician getting away with a bribe. He's afraid of the entire legislative branch being arrested by the executive branch whenever they disagree.
Which happened.
Constantly. MPs were arrested, disappeared, executed. So for Al-Waily, immunity is not a perk. It's a wall. It is a defensive fortification to keep the soldiers and the secret police out of the parliament. He's prioritizing the survival of the institution over the perfect accountability of its members.
Let's revisit the women's rights section. I want to highlight the logic Ahmed uses again. He avoids the religious argument entirely.
He does. He's very clever. He knows that getting into a theological debate about gender roles is a quagmire you can never get out of. So he completely sidesteps it with utilitarianism.
We need the manpower, or in this case, the woman power.
Precisely. He argues that national strength depends on utilizing all of your resources. Women are a resource. Therefore, excluding them from power makes the nation weak. It forces the skeptic to argue against national strength, which is a losing battle in Al-Waily's framework.
It's a very clever rhetorical move. He uses the language of the nationalist to argue for the rights of the feminist.
That is the mark of a skilled philosopher. He meets his audience where they are and leads them to where he wants them to go.
Now, Section 4, the police. The detail about the 8-hour shifts.
It seems like such a minor HR detail, doesn't it? But it's actually revolutionary. In that context, he is recognizing the police as workers with rights
And
limits. An exhausted cop makes mistakes. An exhausted cop gets angry. An angry cop violates the Halim principle. Al-Waily wants a calm, alert, professional police force, not a mob of sleep-deprived guys with guns.
And the prison cooling. I'm sorry I keep coming back to it, but ventilation and cooling.
I will never get over that detail. It was so specific to Iraq. If you've ever spent a July in Baghdad without a fan, let alone air conditioning, you know that it is a form of torture.
So by mandating cooling, he is mandating basic humanity.
He is saying that the state has no right to inflict physical suffering, even on convicted criminals. Punishment is the loss of freedom, not the loss of your right to breathe cool air. That is a very high-minded, very liberal concept of justice.
But then the moral monitors, the ban on gambling.
It's the father aspect of his philosophy again. The wise government is a strict father. He protects you from the bad guys, the torture ban. But he also doesn't want you wasting your money on dice and cards, the gambling ban.
It feels a bit contradictory to the freedom argument he makes elsewhere.
It is. But it's a contradiction inherent in many post-colonial intellectual movements. They wanted political liberty freedom from tyranny, but they wanted social cohesion adherence to tradition. Al-Waily is trying to walk that very fine line. He doesn't want Western decadence. He wants modern Iraqi virtue.
Let's go deeper into the social councils in the 11th night. The imam, the teacher, the elder.
It really is all about legitimacy. In a village, the police officer represents the state, which might be feared or resented. But the imam represents God. The teacher represents the future and knowledge. The elder represents the past and the lineage.
If you get those three to agree on a solution,
The community will accept it. It's undisputed. It has a moral weight that a judge's gavel just doesn't have at that local level.
it's basically binding arbitration, but cultural.
Exactly. It avoids the public humiliation of going to court. It keeps the peace. It maintains the social fabric. It's a brilliant way to integrate the state into the organic life of the village without being intrusive or alien.
And the foreign policy, the Arab League in Beirut, the Switzerland of the East.
It's such a tragic vision in hindsight. He saw the Arab world as a potential economic and political bloc, like the European Union.
Before the EU was even fully formed.
True, he envisioned a unified army. Think about how different the history of the Middle East would be if that had actually happened. Instead of Arab armies fighting each other or fighting their own people.
There would have been a collective security force, a NATO for the Middle East, run by Arabs.
It's one of the biggest what-ifs of the 20th century. Al-Waily saw the immense potential for strength in unity, but he also saw the tragic reality of division all around him.
And the global union, the utopia.
It shows that at his core, despite everything, Al-Waily was a humanist. Despite the violence he saw daily, he believed that humans were capable of acting as one family. He believed that eventually borders would dissolve and we'd see each other as just human.
It's escapism, isn't it? A little bit.
It is. But it's necessary escapism. When the reality on the ground is too painful to bear, you have to build a castle in the sky just to keep your sanity. It speaks to the incredible scale of his thinking. He's sitting in a room in Baghdad, potentially fearing a knock on the door, and his mind is traveling to a future where nations don't even exist.
Let's talk about the economy again, the banks, the service fee concept.
It's a brilliant attempt to reconcile Islam and capitalism. He doesn't want to reject modernity, but he also doesn't want to violate his faith.
It's the middle way.
Al-Waily is always looking for the middle way,
Right.
between East and West, between tradition and modernity, between faith and science. He refuses to choose one or the other. He insists that you can have both.
And the focus on industry. He says a nation without industry is backward.
He knew that oil wasn't enough as a resource to be sold. He wanted to build things. He wanted Iraq to be a creator of value, not just a seller of raw materials. He wanted self-sufficiency.
As we look at the whole document, Al-Dustur al-Hakim, what stands out to you as the most Al-Waily trait? If you had to sum up his entire philosophy in one word.
Optimism.
Optimism, in the face of all that fear and chaos.
Relentless, stubborn, defiant optimism.
Yeah.
To sit down and write a constitution in 1970 Iraq requires a profound belief that things can get better, that reason can win, that structure can tame chaos. Even though Shaker is there whispering doubts in his ear, Ahmed and Al-Waily keeps writing. He keeps proposing solutions.
It's an act of faith.
Writing is an act of faith. Asserting order on a blank page when the world outside is disorderly is a profound act of defiance. It is saying, I refuse to accept that chaos is the natural state of things.
And the fact that it was preserved, this green folder.
It implies that he valued it, he kept it, maybe he showed it to his friends. Look, this is what we could be. It was a seed that he planted, even if the soil wasn't ready.
It reminds me of the ending where the friends part ways after the last night. It feels so melancholy.
To the next night, they say. But we know the nights ran out. The darkness came.
But the ideas didn't die. That's the takeaway, isn't it?
Ideas are harder to kill than people. The green folder survived. It survived the coups, the wars, the looting, the invasion. It's here with us now, being talked about on this deep dive.
So if you are a listener out there and you feel overwhelmed by the chaos of the world, because, let's be honest, the world feels pretty chaotic right now, too.
Take a page from Abdul Jabbar Al-Waily. Get a notebook. Sit down and write your own wise constitution.
Design the world you want to see, even if it's just for you, even if it's just for your family or your community.
Even if it's just a dream on paper, because every single reality starts as a dream on paper.
And who knows, maybe 50 years from now, someone will find your notebook and say, you know what, they had the right idea.
Or at least they kept the flame alive.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the mind of a forgotten philosopher, Abdul Jabbar Al-Waily.
It was a privilege.
We'll see you next time. Keep dreaming.